right. Well, welcome everyone. And I see Sonia's on, so I think we'll go ahead and kick off our meeting. So thanks for joining us today. We are here to talk about special education paraprofessional credentialing or requirements for being qualified as a special education para in Minnesota. And Erin Toninato would be with us. She got last minute kind of hijacked to her schedule. So I'm filling in as our greeter and host. So just want to welcome everyone and thank Sonia and Paul for being with us today to talk about this topic. Sonia, it's my understanding that maybe it's just kind of more of a Q&A, but I will maybe kick it over to you to start if there's anything you want to do as far as a overview, and if you have anything to present as well.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Yes, like Paul said, we decided that this did not need to be anything too formal because you attend the director's forums for the most part, and we're constantly talking at you, giving information. And so my hope is this is an opportunity for us to just engage in some form of conversation. I'd love to hear from all of you, but I will start it with a brief summary. And then of course I'll give some space for Paul to add, and then we'll go from there with maybe questions that some of you, if not all of you, may have. First, let me start with paraprofessionals. We I know I keep saying we did not change anything. This is not a new requirement. The only thing that is different is offering a little more flexibility to what LEAs were able to do to ensure that their paraprofessionals supporting students with disabilities um, can access. I'll say it like that. You have the things that most of you are aware of, what's in statute. That is 60 credit, college credit hours. That is, there are two different assessments that parents can take to determine if they are meeting the personnel requirements to be a paraprofessional. And then we added, like 2 months ago, maybe, a competency grid. The competency grid is not new and it's not different. It was tied to a credential that was offered through Pelsby. We are aware of that. What we did was we took that competency grid so that LEAs can determine, based upon the training we would expect that they would have provided to paraprofessionals over, say, a 3-year period, because my hope is it's not one and done. You're constantly providing training, and those trainings would allow those paraprofessionals being trained to indicate that they have met competency in the areas listed on the competency grid. With that, we were saying 3 years or more, because if you think about it, a brand new paraprofessional, they are learning the job, they are getting the training, they're trying to take it all in. That's their first year, it's a blur, and they may or may not have kept everything in their heads because they are trying to support students and learn it all at the same time. Second year, they get some additional training. The training is hopefully covering those competency areas. That's the point. And now they have an opportunity to put it in further practice, it being what they have been trained on. And they've been able to demonstrate that they understand the trainings and that they can implement the trainings. And that takes them on to year 3. And we believed that so that we don't, I'm going to use the term lower the bar, so that we don't say that you could just put anybody in a classroom to support our students with disabilities. We don't ever want to do something like that. We want our people to be qualified. We believe that we could reasonably support a paraprofessional who has gotten training for 3 years. We'd be able to support an LEA indicating that through these trainings for this current school year, these paraprofessionals have met the necessary competencies and can demonstrate, because they've been able to practice, put things into practice over the years that they've been with the district. They've met the competencies and they are what we would say is qualified to work in those special education classrooms. What we are no longer saying is or using the terms highly qualified. One, it confuses folks. And when in 2015, when that language went out, we didn't exactly let it go, but we can let the language of highly qualified go. We just still need to have qualified staff meeting personnel requirements. Um, that competency grid was meant to be a local type assessment. You are assessing whether or not the paraprofessionals are meeting those competencies locally. MDE was not coming in to determine whether or not you check the boxes correctly, because we trust that you are hiring the right staff. You know the staff that you've hired. Folks have been in their positions for upwards, certainly 3 years, but the more is what gets my attention. We've had individuals who have been in their positions for 9 and 20 years, 24 years, one I've heard from, where they feel like they've been doing this job, they've been successful at their job, they've not heard anything different, and they have in some way been told that they are no longer qualified to continue to do the work that they've been doing for, in some cases, 20 plus years. So again, that is me kind of going around about the, like kicking it off with that bit of a summary of what we were attempting to do with that competency grid, with the intent to revisit this for the summer with the work group and return for the fall with something that we can actually hold on to. Paul, am I missing anything? Tried to cover kind of like what the quick response to paraprofessionals indicating that they would not have a job after the end of the school year if they did not meet those personnel requirements. And so we added that one part. It was not on top of, it was in lieu of, if those paraprofessionals had 3 or more years. So you could do one or the other. So I believe there were 3 pathways, if I'm thinking correctly.
Yep.
That being one of them.
Yeah, so originally there's always been the 3 for either 60 college credits, an AA or higher, or passing of one of the para exams, either the para educator, para pro. And so, which that still isn't in place for all paraprofessionals. All of them could qualify under any one of those 3 options. Just need one. The change was in the last 2 months, as Sonia said, for individuals with 3 or more years of experience who've gone through successful training and can fill out the competency grid, that if the individual doesn't have the college experience, nor has, or is looking to take the para-educate exam, if they have the 3 years experience and have gone through enough of those trainings, by filling that out, then they could even just avoid even having to deal with the para-educator. For most sakes, there's the caveat: if you are in a school-wide Title I program,
Yes.
there is no getting around the school-wide Title I programs. Regardless of funding source, all individuals must meet the Title I requirements, which are then just the 3 of either the 60 college credits in AA or higher, or passing of a state administered exam, para-educate.
So we're going to pause there to see if there are any questions about what looks like that brief summary.
Sonia, this is Mike Scott from Hutchinson. I just had a question. When you said the competency grid for this year only, is that, so if they are showing on the competency grid, we check the things off, we go through it with them, does that not carry into the future like the AA degree would? I just wanted to clarify that would carry on for the rest of their time here, or you said you're reassessing something this summer. Does the competency grid have to be gone through again?
That is an amazing question that we hadn't got to the end of yet, because once you qualify, what we were stating is you qualify. You that's it. You don't go back and take the test over and over. So we should not be saying you need to go through these competencies grids over and over. However, because that was such a temporary fix, we needed to go back and reevaluate and make sure it would rise to the level of satisfying whatever it is that's required of us federally. And we were going to do it in such a way that it is not disruptive. What we did not want is for people to get to the end of the school year and believe that they needed to terminate staff, and we are in a staff shortage situation. That's what we did not want. So that was offering an option so that we can make it through the school year successfully and honor the work that these individuals have been doing for a number of years. If there would be changes, there would be slight changes, and it would sort of allow us to grandfather some folks in. That's really what we wanted to do. We just needed to make sure that it would hold. And so that's why I said it was temporary to begin with. I did have someone say, well, am I going to have to do this every year? No, that was the whole point of us saying that we were going to meet in the summer. We were going to have a work group so that it's not a one-man show or one division. We wanted to make sure that we were addressing every area so that we don't get into a situation to where we try to fix one thing and we break another. I did not want to get in the position to where we mishandled our responsibility, got outside of our authority, and then we end up with some form of a non-compliance situation. I didn't want to do that. And so this needed to be temporal until we can be sure that we have not put ourselves in a position to face some unintended consequences.
Sonia,
Would you
can I
like to add
repeat
to
what
that?
I think I heard? I just want to make sure. So what you're saying is at this point, it's still, I may be up for conversation, but as far as we're concerned, once a person has done the grid, they are meeting qualifications until we hear differently. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely, especially since there is a lot of conversation going. There's a lot of conversation happening around what needs to happen moving forward.
Yeah.
There is lots of different talks. What I believed last month could potentially be changed in the next month or so. And so I can't speak with as much certainty for the future, but I can absolutely say today, this is where we're at. And no one should be losing their job as a result of having, say, 9 years competency grid is available and we just chose not to use it. It's available.
Thanks for that clarification. That's helpful.
You are welcome. And let me see, okay, I'm going to try to do this successfully with the whole chat thing. Holly, thank you. It says, even if they have been in the job for less than 3 years, okay, it is 3 years or more that the competency grid is, you can use that competency grid. So am I understanding? Holly, I don't see you on here, but if you want to offer a little bit of clarification to make sure I'm answering your question correctly.
Yeah, so if we have folks that we could complete that competency grid for, but they've been here 2.5 years, that's not an option.
We're sticking to the 3 years or more because that's kind of like the set standard. It is something that we're hoping to revisit. There's lots of conversations about what do we do for the folks who have less than 3 years. Currently, those folks are hopefully meeting those other 3 options because that's what is currently available to them.
And so if they're not, then we're back to maybe we have a position or maybe we don't, right?
Paul, you want to speak to that?
So obviously, if they're currently at 2.5 years, as myself or Sonia's and her staff, my staff will say, is none of the paraprofessionals are getting reviewed specifically this year for fiscal year 24. The only way my staff is going to be reviewing a paraprofessional this year is if looking in Cedra data, your average salary hourly rate for a paraprofessional is $25 an hour, and there's an individual making $50 an hour in there. The question then is going to come up, is this person correctly reported or should they be reported somewhere else? That look. But no one from my staff, and I assume fiscal monitoring or program monitoring, no one is going out and sampling paraprofessionals for this school year 24 to verify that they meet one of the 3 general requirements, or if they have 3 or more years of experience, that they have the credential filled out. Again, with the big reason for this is the credential was offered within the last 2 months. And in no way does my staff want to, or anyone want to reach out from MDE and have, oh, we're in the middle of filling this form out, and then to be playing the waiting game. I can say for mine that as of right now, what I've been telling MASBO or the other business groups when presenting to the regions is mine would be looking to start doing reviews in fiscal year 25, but not until after like the start of the new year. So sometime in January, February, March would be the earliest mine would be looking, just because we try to avoid stuff in the fall because we're trying to close out the prior year. And so definitely there's plenty of time for the people to get the 3 years, hopefully, and also get a grid filled out, whether it be the current grid or if something changes over the summer to a revised different grid or option. As previously stated, if, however, you are at a school-wide title program site, then no matter what, those individuals must meet one of the 3 options, 60 credits, AA or higher, or pass one of the exams to qualify.
And before I answer questions that are in the chat, I want to pause right there because I know that was a point of confusion for some. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with that. Title I requirements cannot be relaxed. And so we want to make sure that we are not being unclear about what those expectations are if paraprofessionals are working on those Title I campuses. All right, so 2 questions that look very, very similar, so I'm going to try to answer them as one. Can the 3 years be a combination of 2 school districts worth of experience? And no need to apologize, because if I covered it and you didn't get it, that means I need to say it again. And I'm totally comfortable with that. Please don't be shy of asking questions. The other is if someone who has 3 years or more experience as a SPED para and goes to a different district, can we count them as qualified? Those districts will need to work together. We've tried to make it consecutive school years at one district because you know the training that you've provided. You're hanging your hat on the fact that you have provided training in such a way that you can say that not only do these paraprofessionals meet those competencies, but they've been able to demonstrate that they've met them. And if you're relying on a different district, then that's going to lead us to believe that you have been in close communication, you've talked through what those trainings are like, and you both agree that, yes, we offered this training and they demonstrated this, and then the new district is saying, and we just offered that training and they demonstrated that, and you're putting it together. It should not be void of a conversation, because how do you know what one district provided if that's not your responsibility to provide? Paul, feel free to add to that while I read this next question.
Yeah, in my general training that's been to the business office, business managers of late has been paraprofessionals, and even that was in our listserv that went out, I believe, on the 29th of February, was paraprofessionals going from who've met and are going to use the competency grid. And if it gets filled out this year and then ultimately they move on to another school, they should be able to take that competency grid with them to the next LEA for proof to show that I am qualified. Again, assuming that that site itself is not a Title I school-wide site. And I see now the next question is around transcripts, official or not. For my staff, whenever we've asked for the requirements, you don't need an official transcript to be sent from the school. Generally, it's just whatever documents the individual has or that your HR department would keep on file.
I'm going to read the question out loud. Do you have any advice on how to handle situations in which staff are having trouble getting transcripts from colleges that are no longer open or from out of country?
So I guess the out of or not open would be harder, but out of country, generally, most of the requirements have always said that the if universities that are in the local area is generally what falls under, and so it's Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, like close nearby. If not, it's generally almost Pelsby has to sign off on and agree that the program that they went through or classes that they take were from an accredited, verified university. And so that's where some of the out of country ones start coming, make things a little more challenging. Similar to, hearing more and more schools going to other countries, specifically like the Philippines, to get licensed special education staff, where then those staff individually have to prove that they have the education ability to work as a special education teacher for their specific areas. But yeah.
I'm assuming Sonia and Paul, like if they have a bachelor's degree and they can produce the diploma that says they have a bachelor's degree or something like that, that would suffice as well. You wouldn't need the transcripts if it resulted in either an AA or higher degree.
Correct.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure that I can articulate this well in the chat, so I'm going to give you my question verbally. What if you have a paraprofessional union that since August, when we really started working on getting all of our paras up to speed with being highly qualified, has indicated that they want all of their members to meet federal highly qualified requirements? They're not really interested in grandfathering anyone in. They just want, like, this is the requirement. They wanted the date of April 30th. And then if they haven't met that, then they, in our system, would essentially have some rights to lower level positions. Is that okay? Like, we don't have to use the matrix?
You don't have to use the competency grid. It is an option like all the others.
Okay.
Yes, you
And we're
absolutely.
talking, I mean, it's not very many, but it was a very interesting meeting. I wasn't anticipating that being the union stance, that they were like so gung-ho about it, but that's where we're at. So we have gone from about 170 needing to pass and get or submit, and we're down to like 7 or something. So we're making really good progress.
Nice. Yes, the competency grid is an option, not a requirement. It's not on top of, and these are questions that I've got. So once they pass the test, then they need to do the competency grid. The answer is no. They could pass one of the assessments, or you can utilize the competency grid if they have 3 or more years of working with the training involved. I've also gotten a question from one paraprofessional, and Jamie, thank you for sharing that, because we've been told that we are communicating only with administration directors, and that information is not trickling down to those who are being impacted the most, paraprofessionals and or teachers that they support. And there is a lot of fear out there, and we've been asked, can you go into these spaces and talk? We don't do that for a couple different reasons. With the local control that you have, we don't want to say something that contradicts. We expect that when we provide you with the information within the authority that we have, that you are articulating that message in a way that supports your district policies, procedures, and requirements, so to speak. My hope is that paraprofessionals are not getting the message that they don't matter, because that has been elevated. Paraprofessionals are not seen as disposable. There are so many different messages coming through to my office, and they're wanting me to speak to those things, and I have to rely on you all as their professional leaders to ensure that your staff are well taken care of, because they are taking care of some of our students who have really, really great needs. And to be in that frame of mindset, working with our students who need them probably the most, is difficult. And so I know for sure, if I can't send you any other message, I want to send you this one. We're here to support you. We will always remain that neutral party. We won't tell you what to do. However, we will indicate this is what has to be done, given that it is the law, it is a requirement, but we don't tell you how to do that. So I'm hopeful that you are handling our staff with care, especially given there's a shortage. There's so much going on. And we don't want to get into the business of telling you how to do what you already know what to do, when you already know what to do. That's what I'm trying to say. I've been reached out to by a few staff, and it's kind of heartbreaking. And so one of my reasons for being here today is to see if there was some confusion with the messages that we've sent out, to bring clarity as best we possibly can, and to get questions on the spot, just in case there's an opportunity for us to say, no, you don't have to do that. Yes, you are able to do that. So again, whatever questions you have, please ask them, because your paraprofessionals are reaching out to us and we are gently sending them back to you. But some of them are feeling underappreciated, lost and confused, because they feel like they're not getting the right message or any messages at all, other than they're going to lose their jobs. So, oh, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, I was just going to go. I see Kathy's question. What funding
Yes.
streams can be used to pay for staff to take one of the approved assessments? Unfortunately, the assessment costs itself are considered a general education cost because a large number of requirements to set in place. And so really this gets into the same with the special education teachers, where you can't use your state or federal special ed funds to pay for a teacher to get a special education teaching license. Basically, the funds are made available for people who are qualified, eligible to do the work, not to get an individual to meeting the qualification standards. Again, I don't think Sonia, neither of I want to talk about any of the current legislation or proposals that are kind of going through, because again, they're just proposals. Any of them, especially that have fiscal dollars tied to it, there's the hard side of it. There isn't money as much for this fiscal year. And again, there still is a month left, and mine, and I'm sure her past experiences, anything can change in the last month. So don't want to talk about things that are in the current process of thing. But so for right now, basically these costs are just considered general ed costs, and would just be coded to Finance 000. I see then the next
Paul,
question. Oh,
Can
yes.
I ask a clarification there? You said like the cost of the assessment. So like the para educator offers modules that prep a para for taking the assessment, right? So like the modules are actually professional learning for the paraprofessional. We're paying in my district for the time that it takes them to complete the modules, which in my mind, it's professional learning for the paraprofessional. Can that staff person's time be eligible for special education funding?
So the same thing would be for a teacher or other individual if they don't hold the requirement that says that they're qualified to be a teacher, or in this case, meeting the qualifications to being a paraprofessional. All hours of work leading up to that time would not be eligible for special education reimbursement. Again, I'm going to add with the caveat, I am not hunting down, we're not looking at people for fiscal year 24. This isn't something to even starts looking at until sometime next year.
That was super helpful clarification. Thanks, Paul.
I see the next question is to confirm an employee attests that they have an AA degree or higher on their employment application. Do we need to request official transcripts? A lot of this gets into what is your HR policy for review. Obviously from ours, if my staff or other staff were reviewing it, generally, if we probably would start with asking as to what was provided to the LEA as to document that the person was qualified. If all you had was the actual job application itself from the individuals, it kind of, I guess, hit or miss as to what a person would look at to review to ask for is what additional documentation. And a lot of that would, is what is the policy of the LEA have for providing, and then also to whether or not that would meet the requirements for ours. Again, this year when we were originally looking at starting to do sampling, which would have occurred in late February, early March, know that there's 550 roughly LEAs in the state. If I sample 5 paras from every LEA, we're sampling 2,500 individuals. And again, the process to run through that for just my staff of 6 of us, we're all looking at some of them, definitely just makes it be a fairly quick turnaround. So a lot of it would be more as to what is the policy that the LEA has, what documentation, how did the LEA verify that the person was qualified, if, you know, for those things, and just moving forward. And so I imagine similar would be done next year for how the policy will be done.
Can I get some a follow-up or ask a follow-up related to my question about out of country? I'm struggling a little bit with it first because we're trying to diversify our workforce and trying to help bring staff in that can really support students. And I spoke recently with a paraprofessional who has a teaching degree and taught in India. And now essentially we're saying, you know, you have to prove it in another way because of the if I'm going with what you stated today, is that the out of country bachelor's and master's degree wouldn't essentially qualify. And I'm just wondering if that's anywhere in writing. It was my understanding that the documentation or the evidence is based on LEA control, and so looking at who makes that decision about what qualifies, what doesn't qualify, and making the decision whether they would need to take a test or use the competency grid. And a lot of these are coming in, you know, brand new. They're not necessarily going to have that 3 or more years of experience in our school. So just again, wondering if you can clarify that LEA control portion of the documentation.
Yeah, so the feds and for everything, and again, since this is basically referencing and similar to the Title I requirements that are in 200.58, when it comes to either the 2 years of college credits or AA or higher, specifically says through an accredited institution of higher education. Obviously, when they're metro, like Minnesota or nearby state based, is a lot easier to verify that they are accredited higher education. Once you start getting further out, it's harder to verify that they are a higher education piece, and that's where then it's almost, in some cases, you're having to ask PELSB if what they have for information based on that. But so that's kind of where then those, as for especially the internationals, where it's does this meet the same rigorous requirements of, you know, a higher education requirement for in the United States or for our states.
Hi, Sonia and Paul. This is Carolyn in St. Paul. Hi.
Hey.
So I, Sonia, to the point that you had made earlier about whether there's been, I guess, confusion about the requirements, I don't know that there's been confusion. I think it's been pretty standard all along about college and degrees or being able to pass the test. I think what all of this has created, so the conundrum that our district is in and maybe others, is that the messaging around what could potentially happen or if people aren't meeting the highly qualified criteria, and we are in this staffing crisis. And so the messaging about sort of timelines, how do we work with people? We have lots of folks who are multilingual learners, where it takes a long time, maybe, and longer for them to be able to learn and pass. I'm seeing heads nod, where I think that that's probably one of the pieces where you have people who are really great at working with kids. They can do the kinds of things that they're being asked to do in the classrooms. And it might depend on what grade they're working with. The needs that for littles and the things that they have might look different than other places. And so now we're in this situation of timelines, or folks have been given notice to say, if you don't do these things or provide it, and there's sort of it's been around for a long time, and not excusing we should have been like working on documentation and how do you work with folks, and you have COVID, and right. So all of the things that have happened, I guess my question is, so if keeping people employed is like the thing that we really want to be able to do, and we don't want to lose our staff for next year. Is there a worst case scenario? What could potentially happen if we don't have all of these people? Like, we do really well, but people need to take the test over the summer, or we want to continue to have people employed next year. What are the possibilities or the other kinds of things? I hear the grid, but we still have to meet title, like, is the grid could be a holdover until next year, and then people keep working on it. So those are some of my wonderings of how do we deal with the staffing kinds of piece and the folks that we're trying to recruit and retain for our districts.
So I see Paul and I we're like, okay, are you gonna go? Are you gonna go? I'm actually gonna hand it over to Paul, but I do want to clarify one thing. The grid cannot be a holdover for a title school. There are no flexibilities, relaxation for title schools. So I want to make sure I put that disclaimer out there. But you said something else. Oh, good grief. Paul, let me let you go while I gather my thoughts, because you said something else and I'm too busy talking about title.
Right. So using the competency grid, again, assuming that the school site itself is not part of a Title I school-wide program site itself, for your individuals that are unable to pass either the Parapro, Paraeducator exam, whether it be first, second, third, or whichever try ultimately on, which Wayne Klinsky got numbers from the Parapro being around 71% so far this year for fiscal year 24, although they haven't given a number of individuals who's taken the exam, just a straight pass rate. The paraeducator had a higher pass rate, and then also was giving on the second pass through, third pass through, and in most cases between the two parts of the exam, I believe part one was around 89% within three attempts, whereas part two was 95% within the 3 attempts type thing. Obviously, again, if it's a school-wide title program and they don't have the education requirements, you're kind of, no matter what, have to go the Parapro or Paraeducator exam route. And it's probably the point of focus from now until starting next school year for 25 is to make sure that those individuals meet that qualification piece. As if not, and it's not a school-wide, then using whether or not an individual wants to go through taking the one of the 2 formal assessments for the next month or 2, or taking all the prep courses, or you just want to say they've been with us for a number of years and here are the specific trainings and tutelage that they've reviewed, and going through then the para competency grid and going that route instead. And once that's in place, it'll hold them so long as your school is not a Title I school-wide school.
Which for large districts or most districts, like, I would be interested, like, who could actually use the grid? It's not going to be very many. Certainly a lower percentage, my guess is.
I think when I pulled the MASE file, I think it's about 190 school districts and charter schools have at least a school-wide school within theirs, out of roughly the 200 or 550 LEA. So, but yes, definitely is a large, and especially in the metro area, most sites, yes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to, you guys talked about title like 3 times, and now I think I've heard it, and I want to make sure I'm hearing it right. If you're doing targeted you can use competency grid, correct?
It's if your site is a targeted assistance, and there's another one in there, because there's an A when you fill out the your MASE file, there's an A, B, and a C. C is the only one that's specific to you are a school-wide Title I program.
Okay. The thing about just some feedback is if there's going to be some things changed this summer, the competency grid is for the staff that I'm working with right now. They're gravitating towards that option because they feel they can't pass the assessment. They are a bus para for 2 hours a day. they're doing this, they haven't been in college or school for many years. I mean, we probably all know some of these scenarios. If there's any, they're asking about doing that when I see 65 competencies on there or subdivisions. Um, it's going to be very difficult for me. I don't know what guidance to use to look at that, because when I say that the other areas are having 2 years of college, an AA degree or 60 credits, passing one of these assessments, which is showing probably some competency of reading, math, writing, having that instruction. To go through this, I feel like my lens is I have to have a higher standard, a standard similar to what the other ones are, to not just sit down with staff and go through each one of these and sign off that I'm ethically saying that you've met all of these things. Then reading them appears to be very difficult. I know they can go through 3 years of training here, but that's, again, not equivalent to, I guess in my mind, somebody that has an AA degree or 60 credits, or being able to have some of the skills to do the one of those assessments. So if there's anything that's looked at this summer, I almost think the competency grid is very difficult to use, and I'm not feeling comfortable administratively to sign off unless I have ample evidence. I don't know what other people are feeling, but I'm just kind of doing this right now, stepping in for another person's absence. But as I'm going through it, that's just a little bit of feedback that the people that are wanting to do it in our district are feeling like they can't pass the test or haven't. And I feel administratively, I have to have a standard that if I'm going to sign off on this, that I'm going to stand behind it, that they've got all of these competencies, which look somewhat difficult to show. So.
Michael, I appreciate you for saying that, sharing that bit of feedback. And I think that is something that we're absolutely looking at for the summer. So just to offer a little bit more clarification, this was something that was offered given that folks were losing their jobs almost immediately. And we wanted to make sure that they understood that there was an additional option available to them. And I truly, truly appreciate the fact that and I believe that you all are doing this, but because you said it out loud, Michael, you're taking it very seriously. You're not just going to check the box and send people through and whatnot. I do know that there are some individuals who just struggle with test taking, and they can demonstrate that they have those competencies. It's just in the matter of a sit down, take this assessment is very difficult for them. And so this was an option that they would gravitate to because it actually is more reflective of what they are capable of doing as opposed to the assessment. Which is why it's an option, not a requirement, of course. And we are taking all things into consideration that will help to make this process better. I don't know when's the last time we as an agency, and I'm just speaking MDE, has really looked deeply into personnel qualifications for paraprofessionals, but whether it's been like a long time ago or we're just getting to it now, and I can tell you that we're taking it very seriously and we're looking for an opportunity to do what's best for our students with disabilities, which means helping to support the people who are expected to serve them. We do not get a pass federally. We still have to make sure we offer FAPE. We still have to make sure personnel requirements are met. There's a lot there. Even through the pandemic, it was like there were just some things we could not do, and it's like, yeah, we know, and you need to make up for this, that, or the other, because you just don't get that pass. So knowing what we are facing, we are doing the best that we can to be supportive of. I heard Carolyn Cherry, I believe, was saying like, hey, we got a staffing shortage. We know, and we are in this fight with you, which is why we are going to be looking more into what it is we can do to support for this area, not just this area, but definitely for this area. There's a lot of other conversations going on. I think I said that at the beginning, but I'm going to say it again. There are a lot of conversations happening currently that could impact the direction that we go in, which is why I can't say in the summer, this is exactly how it's going to look. I can tell you what it is currently, and I can tell you what the desire is and what we will look forward to doing as we learn more about where we're headed. We're not just going to leave you with a competency grid that feels like you really can't use it for a lot of folks. would
I
take away
would
all of that.
offer a different perspective with the competency grid. Like, it was a huge game changer for us. I'm Caitlin Willis from Stillwater, directors from Stillwater. But the other thing that we were able to do is then design all of our PD days that were left for the year. We were able to use that competency grid to design PD that aligned with all the competencies in that grid, so that by the time we got to the end of this school year, we could check the boxes for those competency areas. So I just, a different perspective that I want to throw out there. So I don't want us to throw out, I think options and choice is good.
Which actually confirms that what works for some does not work for all. And it's helpful. So I appreciate that perspective, Caitlin. Yeah, we didn't take away any options. So those other options are still there. And this was one added. And so hopefully we will have more without risking lowering any standards for those who are expected to support our students with disabilities.
Sonia, I want to jump in here. I'm Barbara Stahl. I'm formerly from the Minnesota Department of Education. I was one of the people that developed those competencies and got them approved by the Board of Teaching. A long time ago, long time ago. The competencies were developed just as Stillwater was using them, I believe, as an opportunity for non-Title I school districts to demonstrate and show that, and the paraprofessionals themselves show that they had actually staff development and training around services to students with disabilities. I know those competencies very well. There used to be actually staff development curriculum that was joined with the University of Minnesota, only in a sort of a contract, not with actually the university, where there was staff development and training available on MDE's website for paraprofessionals. I don't know where that's gone, and I've looked for it. They say it's never gone if it's on the internet. I can't find that one. But it was designed to sort of demonstrate paraprofessionals have been trained in order to work with students with disabilities. Now, knowing them the way I do or did, some of them are redundant and probably need to be looked at again, absolutely, but that's a little historical background. And right now I'm at the University of St. Thomas after I retired from the state of Minnesota. But just a little context might help.
Sure, thank you, Barbara.
Looks like our questions in the chat are slowing down. Want to give the opportunity for any other questions verbally or via chat before we wrap up. I see Erin Toninato's joined us. Hi, Erin.
Yeah, hi. I've been able to be here. So I just really can't stress enough, Sonia and Paul, how grateful we are that you allowed this time for us. You were getting questions, I was getting questions, and it seemed like the best thing to do was to give people the opportunity to ask those very specific questions during something like this. So when we say that we really are collaborating and working together, I just think this is an excellent example of the relationship that continues to develop. So I just can't say thanks enough. And also I do want to acknowledge that there just is a lot happening legislatively around this topic. So also to kind of agree to do this now when we know that there could be changes is also appreciated, because I know that, like you said, what you say today could change next week, right? I think they're on a break next week. So the week after. So this week they're on break. So, you know, I just also want to acknowledge that this is what it is today. And so if people want to move forward, you know, this month in whatever capacity, maybe they have some clarity around it. I don't know that all of the questions are we'll stop, until we have some finality with it, but this is really appreciated.
Thanks, Erin, and we appreciate being received in this manner. Our goal is it's like we're better together. I think that's what you even say, Erin. And I know that the types of questions that we're getting, if we're all on the same page, then I think that we can at least respond to people in such a way that the anxiety might go down just a bit, because they'll know that we're trying to work together to make sure that we're doing what's best for students, which is taking care of the folks who are responsible for supporting students. My hope is that the messaging will trickle down to your staff, whatever that messaging needs to be, because again, I can't stress to you enough that even though we're getting the questions about what about this, what about that, and here's my story, some of which are really, really heartbreaking, it's the fact that some feel thrown aside. My hope is that you will hear this message, and even if it's not your staff, you'll be able to take a moment to show that your paraprofessionals in particular, that they are appreciated. Their work is very, very important. They are needed, and we are working very hard, diligently trying to work together to make sure that we get some answers so that folks can be a little less anxious as they're trying to support our students. I can tell you that my weight gain is real, real good, but I know that you all have a lot to do. So I want to make sure with Melissa and Erin, are there any other questions that you would like for us to at least attempt to respond to today?
Nothing on my end.
I don't see anything coming through either, so
All
in the
right,
interest of time, I think you can probably wrap it up, and thank you so much for this.
awesome. Thank you. We'll be in touch again.
Thank you
Thanks, have a
all.
great afternoon.
Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, you too.